Have you ever met someone who was so brave that it seemed like they had no fear? Someone who could overcome any obstacle and never give up? Well, today we're going to tell you the story of one such person, Sergeant Alvin C. York, whose bravery on the battlefield was matched only by his humility off it. On October 8, 1918, near the French village of Fliery, Sergeant Alvin C. York led a squad of American soldiers into a battle against the Germans. What happened next would change the course of World War I and make York one of the most decorated U.S. soldiers in history. But before we dive into the details of this epic battle, let's take a step back and learn about the man behind the legend. Born on December 13, 1894, in Pall Mall, Tennessee, York grew up on a farm and was the oldest of 5 children. He was known for his strong work ethic, quiet determination, and deep religious faith. From an early age, York was a devout member of the Church of Christ, scientist. His faith played a significant role in shaping his values and beliefs. In fact, he was initially a conscientious objector to military service, believing that war was contrary to his religious principles. However, after much soul-searching and with the urging of his pastor, he decided to join the army, driven by a sense of duty and patriotism. After undergoing rigorous training, York and his fellow soldiers were sent to France, where they faced some of the most intense fighting of the war. As a member of the 326th Infantry Regiment, 82nd Division, York fought in several battles, including the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, one of the largest and most brutal battles of the war. It was during this time that York's leadership skills and bravery on the battlefield truly shone through. In the chaos and carnage of war, York demonstrated remarkable courage and tactical thinking, earning the respect and admiration of his fellow soldiers. But despite his success, he still felt the weight of his initial beliefs and questioned whether he had made the right decision by going to war. It was during this time that York began to doubt his decision to leave the peaceful life of a farmer for the muddy trenches of World War I. He missed his family and friends, the familiar sights and sounds of home, and most of all, the simple joys of a life free from the constant threat of death. Despite the bravery he had shown on the battlefield, York found himself longing for the peace and tranquility of his Tennessee farm. However, amidst the uncertainty and turmoil of his own thoughts, York received news that would change everything. His younger brother James had enlisted in the army and was on his way to Europe. This development brought a renewed sense of purpose and clarity to York. He realized that if his brother was willing to put his life on the line, then he too had a duty to fulfill. With a newfound determination, York threw himself back into the fight, drawing strength from the knowledge that he was not just fighting for his country, but also for his brother and all the loved ones who had sacrificed so much for the war effort. And it was during this pivotal moment in his journey that York's true heroism emerged. On October 8, 1918, York and his squad were sent on a mission to capture a group of German soldiers who had been harassing their troops. What followed was nothing short of a miracle. York and his team managed to capture 132 German soldiers, an astonishing feat that turned the tide of the battle in favor of the Americans. It was one of the most successful individual efforts of the entire war and earned York the Medal of Honor, the highest award for bravery in the U.S. Army. But York's story doesn't end there. After returning home a hero, he continued to live a life of service. Working as a carpenter and farmer and serving as a member of the Tennessee National Guard, he remained humble and unassuming, never seeking attention or glory for his actions on the battlefield. And it's this humility and modesty that truly make him an inspiration to us all. Now, what was so special about York's actions on that fateful day in 1918? How did he manage to capture 132 German soldiers single-handedly and change the course of the battle? Let's find out. It was a cold, misty morning in the fall of 1918 when Sergeant York led his squad of around 20 American soldiers into the dense forest near the French village of Fliery. Their mission was simple, yet dangerous. Infiltrate the woods and capture a group of German soldiers who had been harassing the U.S. troops and disrupting their supply lines. York and his men moved through the thick underbrush, their senses on high alert, listening for any sign of movement or sound that could betray their position. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew heavy with tension and anticipation. Suddenly, York's keen ears picked up the faint sound of voices, and he motioned to his squad to halt. Taking a few steps back, he crouched low to the ground, his eyes scanning the trees ahead for any sign of movement. Then he saw them, a group of about 150 German soldiers. Their uniforms and equipment, glinting in the pale light filtering through the dense canopy. York knew that he had stumbled upon the very soldiers they were sent to capture, but he also knew that his small squad stood little chance in a direct confrontation. So he came up with a plan. As the Germans continued their march, oblivious to the danger that lay in wait for them, York and his squad moved into position, taking cover behind large trees and rocks. When the time was right, York gave the order to fire. Rifle fire erupted, shattering the stillness of the forest and sending the German soldiers scattering in panic. In an instant, the balance of power shifted as the Americans, with their superior firepower and tactical positioning, had managed to catch the Germans off guard. With bullets whizzing through the air and the forest floor littered with spent cartridges, the battle raged on. York and his men, fueled by adrenaline and the desire to complete their mission, fought with unwavering determination. They reloaded quickly, aiming for accuracy and firing until their rifles were empty. One by one, the Germans fell, either wounded or captured, their weapons abandoned on the ground. York, with his keen eye and steady aim, was like a hunter stalking his prey, taking down each enemy soldier with precision and skill. The Americans, inspired by York's leadership and bravery, fought with a ferocity that belied their small numbers. They moved from position to position, flanking the Germans and cutting off their escape routes. Soon, the forest echoed with the sounds of surrender as more and more German soldiers dropped their weapons and raised their hands in defeat. With the battle seemingly won, York turned his attention to the next objective, rounding up the captured German soldiers and ensuring they remained under control. He barked orders, his voice echoing through the trees. Organizing his men and preparing for the next challenge, transporting the prisoners back to the American lines. It was a daunting task, but York, with his innate sense of leadership and determination, rose to the occasion. He organized his men into groups, each responsible for guarding a portion of the prisoners and escorting them safely back to friendly territory. Throughout the ordeal, York kept a close watch, anticipating any potential threats and ensuring the safety of both his men and the prisoners. Finally, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor, York and his men successfully delivered the captured German soldiers to the designated holding area. With the mission accomplished, York, exhausted but triumphant, looked upon the scene before him, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and red, a fitting backdrop to the day's events. Around him, his men celebrated their victory, their laughter and cheers echoing through the trees, a testament to their camaraderie and the triumph of their shared effort. Sergeant York and his men had just achieved something extraordinary, capturing 132 German soldiers single-handedly and changing the course of the battle near Fliery, France. York's bravery, strategic thinking, and unwavering determination had led his small squad to a victory that would become a legend in military history. As news of York's heroic actions spread, people from all walks of life came together to honor their local hero. A parade was organized, marching through the town, accompanied by a brass band playing patriotic tunes. Along the route, crowds of people cheered and waved, their faces a mixture of pride and admiration. The local church bells were rung, their resonant tones echoing York's bravery and sacrifice. At the center of all the festivities was York, humble and unassuming, waving to the crowd and accepting their praise with gratitude and humility. During the celebration, a speech was given, praising York's extraordinary courage and leadership. The speaker, a local dignitary, highlighted how York's actions had not only saved countless lives, but had also turned the tide of the battle in favor of the Allies. The crowd listened intently, their admiration for York growing with each word. Later that evening, a grand banquet was held in York's honor, with tables laden with food and drink. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and celebration. Friends, family, and townspeople gathered together, sharing stories and laughter as they toasted to York's heroic deeds. For York, it was a humbling experience, surrounded by so many people who had come together to show their appreciation and support. The day culminated in a grand fireworks display, lighting up the night sky with vibrant colors and dazzling displays of light. The townspeople and soldiers alike stood in awe, watching as the fireworks painted the darkness with images of courage, freedom, and victory. For York, it was a fitting end to an extraordinary day, a celebration of his bravery and the shared sacrifice of those who had fought for their country. So what can we learn from the story of Sergeant Alvin C. York? How can we channel our inner strength and bravery to overcome the challenges we face in our everyday lives? Well, for starters, we can look to York's unwavering sense of duty and patriotism. Despite his initial reservations about going to war, York ultimately decided to serve his country because he felt a strong sense of responsibility and loyalty to his fellow Americans. Similarly, we too have a duty to serve our communities and the world around us. Whether it's through acts of kindness, volunteering, or standing up for what's right, another valuable lesson we can take from York's story is the importance of adaptability and resourcefulness. When York and his squad found themselves face to face with a much larger group of German soldiers, he didn't panic or become overwhelmed. Instead, he quickly assessed the situation and came up with a plan to use his limited resources to their fullest potential. Likewise, we can learn to remain calm and level-headed in the face of adversity and to think creatively about how to use what we have available to us to achieve our goals. Finally, we can draw inspiration from York's humility and modesty. Despite his incredible bravery and the immense pressure he was under, York never forgot the importance of his faith and his values. He remained humble and unassuming throughout his military career and never sought out fame or fortune for his actions. This is a powerful lesson for us all, reminding us that true greatness lies not in our accomplishments, but in our character and the values we uphold. In conclusion, the story of Sergeant Alvin C. York is a testament to the power of faith, duty, and impossible courage. York's bravery on the battlefield and his humility in the face of adversity are qualities that we can all aspire to. So let us take inspiration from his example and strive to be better citizens, more adaptable problem solvers, and humbler individuals. Thank you for watching, and please share your thoughts and feedback.